Hey guys, and welcome to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today I'm going to be doing a tournament report. I'm going to also be writing an article, but I felt like just doing a video would allow me to share some of the thoughts about my own story, my own tournament, a little bit in a more personal way, in a more relaxed way, and then the actual article itself will detail a little bit more. Stats and exact numbers and exact card thoughts. It'll just be more organized, I guess. But in any case, we just had the Minnesota Regionals, which had 85 people attended. And it was a big deal. Obviously, the seat at Worlds is on the line, although hopefully there'll be lots of space at Worlds. It's nice to know that you can't possibly lose the lottery. So we're all trying to win. The Destiny Council, all of us were preparing for it. We also had 3 others who ended up testing it with us quite a bit. That would be my brother, Rami, and Gil, who are both solid players from the meta. Although Gil is like the meta, the player in our meta who just shows up with the crazy jank deck every single week and never plays the meta deck, except for at the big tournaments. But he's still a solid player. So when we were playtesting, I've been playing qui-gon the most out of any decks. And RTP2 starts doing really well. We kind of discount it like everybody else. We play some games against it, and we're like, oh my goodness, this deck is actually really good. Why can't I beat it? But I like qui-gon so much more. I enjoy it so much more that I keep playing it. And eventually, I developed a build that I really like against RTP2. I really think favors it. A version of qui-gon at least, I feel has the upper hand. And in our playtesting and coming down to the wire in the week and a half or so beforehand, it actually beats R2P2 enough to the point that all of our R2P2 players switched to playing Qui-Gon and running the version that I developed, with help, certainly. I was the first one, though, to put in Swiftness Concentrate, because I'm such a combo player. And I was the one who just kept keeping it in there, saying that, no, this card just wins games. And that's really what it is. Swiftness Concentrate... huge props, by the way, to honestly Sarcastic from the Hyperloops. He did a vlog, and he actually talked about our lists. And just from reading our lists, he pointed out a vast majority of the sneaky things that our list can do. So I was pretty surprised by that. The biggest one just being that if you have a Vibro Knife on the board, Swiftness Concentrate now deals a ridiculously insane finishing blow that no one can deal with. No one can plan around. I mean, if you have your Rey sitting there with 3 shields, 4 damage on her, and a Force Illusion, you're not expecting her to die there. But the reality is, with Swiftness Concentrate, you just turn to that +3 on the Ancient Lightsaber, the +2 on that Vibro Knife, and a 2 on one of your characters. You need one of those sides, obviously, to already be there, and here you are dealing 7 unblockable damage from nowhere. And most of the time, Rey is sitting on these upgrades that aren't redeploys. She's sitting on 2 Shotos and an Ancient. She's sitting on an Ancient and a Shoto. She's not sitting on redeploy weapons, so not only did you just kill Rey out of the blue, you also removed most of their upgrades. They very rarely are playing upgrades on Poe unless they have either just the excess resources, such that they had slots there, so the game's been going slow, or they drew like a Poe's Blaster. Sometimes a Lipo will be dropped on Poe instead of Rey. So yeah, it's a very deadly combination. Other cards as well just make the matchup sometimes rough for RTP2. Main one being Close Quarters Assault. This card does not get as much attention as it deserves. The card is absolutely ridiculous. Being able to hit an opponent's entire hand on turn 1 because he rolled a couple 1s is insane. They always are holding. I mean, if a person draws double Shoto in R2P2, they're keeping both Shotos, or a lightsaber pull and a Shoto, they're keeping both. So towards the end of the turn, they'll lightsaber pull their second Shoto, and you're just close quarters, and there goes their Shoto. Even just having things they'll hold on to cautions, which they're going to plan on playing at the end of the round. There are some of their better removal options like Guard they'll keep, things like that are just really good to hit from their hand. So turn 1, it's always great because, I mean, mulliganed hands are better than any hand throughout the game, typically. And then later on, whenever you're close quartering, you roll that force feed on Kanan, you force feed roll on Qui-Gon. All the melee dice in the stack have 50% melee sides. So your odds of hitting 3 or so dice is really high. And when you combine this with cards if I do Swiftness Concentrate and it's not going to be a kill, or if I 4-speed concentrate and it's not going to be a kill, you know, half the time it's like, well, now I'm close quartering. You can't re-roll your dice at all. So it's a huge mitigation card if they've rolled poorly, especially in combination with the other cards in our deck, which are Trust the Forest to reroll dice and Sound the Alarm to reroll dice. Basically, when you hit their hand, they're not dealing as much damage that turn. And now, if you still have other dice that you can reroll, they can't influence them at all. So Close Quarters was this other card that made R2P2 feel really rough to play into qui-gon Canyon, because sometimes you just didn't have cards in your hand to do anything. You couldn't... How do you outplay a player when you have no cards? And yeah, Trust the Force was another real kicker that we found towards the end of testing. I think my brother and I were like trying to see if he could play Luke Ray, because he likes that deck. He wasn't having much success in Qui-Gon Canyon Mirrors because he doesn't have 4 speeds, unfortunately. So he was like, well, can I play a different deck? And he'd played Ray, Luke, albeit that is a pretty weak deck in most people's minds, but he'd played it a lot, so he's like, can I play this? And we're looking at like 0-cost options, like, oh, Trust the Force, that sounds good. And then all of a sudden it's in all of our Qui-Gon Canyons because the card's ridiculous. Especially, it's really good into Qui-Gon Canyon, obviously. It's really good into like Kylo Vader. It's extremely good into R2-P2, even though they have red dice. A lot of times they're using every time there's a Poe focus, they're focusing into 2/2 on Rey or 2+3 on Ancient. So and all their upgrades are blue dice except for Poe's Blaster. So lots of the times what you need against R2-P2 is you always need the 0-cost reroll effects, because if you are out of resources and they have that 2 focus showing there, they're going to hit you for 5, they're going to hit you for more than that if you don't have a reroll effect. So having 4 essentially sounding alarms against them is huge for just not losing the games where they just roll well. I found that that's a big thing in this meta, is that like all these dice in the meta have like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2. And it's when the dice roll all the 2 sides that you just lose games. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you play against Qui-Gon Canyon and they roll Qui-Gon into 2/2 and Kanan into 2/2 and +3 on the Ancient, you're just losing. There's nothing you can do. So reroll effects are a great way to mitigate those type of losses. They just reduce the likelihood that your opponent's like random luck roll is going to win the game for them. And it's really good into focus in general, and obviously R2P2 has a lot of that. So yeah, anyways, everyone in our playtesting groups gets converted to the Qui-Gon Canyon list. So we go into the tournament on Saturday, and we do quite well. I actually had a really rough day, so I mean, kind of. I started out, and round 1, I lost, which sucks. I mean, I went into the tournament like, just don't lose round 1, because that ruins your tiebreakers, your strength of schedule for the rest of the day, because everybody else has now lost a game that you're playing. But I go into it, and it's a Kylo Vader, and I don't really think that's a losing matchup for me. There's enough tech in the deck, the main one being Close Quarters Assault. So Kylo Vader has a holocron on the board. They're holding on to their Force Power to claim for. They have a Rise Again in their hand that they're going to play next turn. Well, Close Quarters Assault gets rid of those cards, and when you play them and you hit their Rise Again, you play them, you hit their Mind Probe that they're about to claim for, and it's just huge. You can just burst down Kylo more efficiently. Yeah, I just don't think the matchup is that hard. However, my opponent drew very well, was a very solid player. I'd played him before, so I was a little bit scared sitting down. I was like, oh man, why couldn't I get an easy first round? And I didn't draw well. So he started out turn 1 with like 4 speed, holocron, and then Intimidate was in his hand. And then turn 2, he had Intimidate in his hand, but he didn't play it. He waited to play it until turn 3. So when your opponent draws holocron 4 speed on turn 1, has Force Powers to holocron 4 on turn 2, has both Intimidates in the first 3 turns, I need to draw similarly well. Only I didn't. My turn 1 upgrade was a Vibro Knife. I don't think I drew an upgrade on turn 2. I didn't see 4 speeds. I didn't see Close Quarters Assaults. It was rough. So I lost that, and it's like, oh my goodness, now I have to win out, basically, or else I'll probably lose the tiebreakers. We were playing 8 rounds, by the way. 8 rounds of Swiss, got to top 8. And I did. I won out. It was a stressful day, but every time I sat across from R2P2, I was so excited. I was like, okay, I'm going to win this match, and then I'm going to have a better strength of schedule, because R2P2 is going to win the rest of their games. And yeah, the big thing, the big kicker throughout all the matches against R2P2 was always just the Swiftness Concentrate, kill the Ray, eliminate their resources, eliminate their dice on the board, and then win the game from there. really, especially in Swiss, when people don't know that you're bringing this against them, it just catches them off guard. So I lose the first game, win the next 6, and the final round I'm playing Andrew, which I was super ecstatic about because he was 7-0 at this point. He had literally stated beforehand, he's like, man, I'm so tired. I almost just want to like concede my last game. So, I mean, it's a long day. We're going to have our best of 3s later. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be playing Andrew when he's not trying. This should be good. And it was kind of funny because he really didn't try. He was just trying to not think, trying to like conserve his energy for the top 8. He had already secured his spot being 7-0. But it's still oddly, he dealt a lot of damage for not trying. But I did draw very well that game, and if you draw well in that matchup, I had like 4-speed turn 1. I had like Trust the Force. I had a Shoto, and yeah, I won in like 3 turns. Like it was a fast game because he wasn't being too careful about mitigating. But he still drew a lot of. I think he drew 2 synchronicities, and he still dealt a lot of damage. So it was a little bit scary. It's like, Andrew, stop beating me. But I did end up winning, so went 7-1. Turns out that even with losing that game, I probably would have been in the top 8. My strength of schedule was actually pretty strong, so I guess I just ended up facing good players throughout the day, oddly enough. So yeah, and then as far as like the other people in our group did, there were 4 of us who made top 8. That would be me, Andrew, Luke, who is my brother, and Rami, who is another good player. And then Will sadly got 9th, missed the cut by 1, and I believe Brian got 11th. So he's in a. So basically, they were both 6-2 and just weren't the 6-2s with the better strength of schedules. Similarly, along those lines, Gil ended 5-3. Although I believe he played like 2 matchups into other people on our team. So that was kind of sad for him. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me. So yeah, it was a great great showing for the deck. Have 4 people in the top 8, 2 barely miss it in the 6-2 range, and 1 go 5-3 and be in the top 16. But the saddest thing ever happens in the top 8, where I know Joe. So Joe was talking in his videos like, I don't know if my R2P2 won, if there's just luck or blah blah blah. Well, part of it, Joe, is that we had to face off against each other. Both of our first rounds were against players in our group, so we automatically eliminated 2 of us in the first round. So I beat Rami and Luke beat Andrew. Which I was a little bit surprised by, because beating Qui-gon Kanan without 4-speed with the Qui-gon Kanan is really hard, because 4-speed is a huge deal in the matchup. I mean, yeah, 4-speed is a ridiculously broken card at times. So my brother wins, I win. We go into the round of 4, and we play against the 2 R2P2s. I play Dan, who is the Worlds winner, who I don't think gets enough credit for winning Worlds. He's a very skilled player, evidently very good at Magic as well. I can't say much on that, but very skilled player. But I go into the matchup and I'm confident that I can beat him, because I mean, this is the R2P2 Slayer, Qui-Gon Kanan. You know, I got close quarters assault. I got Trust the Force, I got my Vibro Knives, I got my Concentrate together with Swiftness. Now, it is worth noting that we are given the lists of our opponents before we play this round. So he knows everything in the state of my deck. He played several people from our group anyway, so he knows that we were kind of doing some sneaky things. But he gets to look at our list and be like, okay, there's 2 Swiftness, there's 2 Concentrate, there are these cards called Trust the Forest, things like that. I get to look at his list. I see that he has 1 block, which is annoying. He has one Force Misdirect, which is nice to know, so that if I see one in his graveyard, he doesn't have any more. And he's running a Decisive Blow, which that card can just absolutely blow out late game matchups. So, I mean, it gives us both knowledge. We go into it. I won the first round with like the whole like Swiftness Concentrate type stuff. I don't remember too much from that match, other than, I mean, I won the roll-off, so I got shields, and I just won out from there. Going to the second round, he gets shields. I don't draw turn 2 upgrades, so everything just goes full aggro. I I spend all my resources on these events. I kill Poe turn 2, but then he just turns around and kills my Qui-Gon turn 3, and or my Kanan turn 3, because I had played my first Fiber Knife on Kanan. And there's just no coming back. When he has 3 upgrades, I have like 1.5. It was rough. Not drawing an upgrade on turn 2 kind of sucked. And him just getting shields is also pretty rough. I have to have a great game to be able to overcome that. So then we go into the third game, and I get shields again, based off the FG rules, where the loser gets to pick the battlefield. I have a Shoto in my starting hand, so I put both shields on Qui-Gon. I put a Shoto on Qui-Gon. But turn 2, I draw a Vibro Knife as my only upgrade, which is unfortunate. I do draw a 4-speed, I believe, at that point, so that's huge. And I get Vibro Knife 4-speed on Kanan. I'm rolling out. I'm doing stuff. And basically, with a Shoto Qui-Gon and a 4-speed Vibro Knife Kanan, I'm able to pull off the unblockable play to kill Rey. I may have had an Ancient. It might have been later on where I have the Ancient on the board, and I kill the 3 shielded, 4 damage done to Rey with 7 unblockable damage. I know that Joe noticed this. This is like the point of the list. This is why we can beat RKP2. Is because we can eliminate Rey and get rid of her upgrades. Now, he did have a Rey Saber on her, and it already had a Lipo on Poe, so Rey Saber moves over, and the next turn he drops another upgrade. And he also mentioned the list for RTP2s. He was running 2 Destinies, 2 Reaping the Crystals, and 2 It Binds All Things. So if there's a list that like kind of countered our list in a sense for RTP2, it would be that list, because half the point of what we're doing is we're trying to get rid of their upgrades. But by the time we kill Rey, they are just like, oh, I also have 3 upgrades on Poe anyways. Because the Shotos, I mean, if he gets Shotos early, that does all the defense he needs for them. If he draws cautions, he still has guards, he still has like field medics. And then when when I'm able to kill Rey, and he still has 5 dice on Poe, it's not as big of a deal. But at that point, it looked like I was going to win Game 3 and go to the finals. It really did. I was pretty confident, but next turn, I mean, everything just went downhill for me. Next turn, I roll out into, with Qui-Gon with an Ancient and a Shoto, I roll out into shield on the upgrades and blank on Qui-Gon. Then he rolls out his Poe into, like, special on Poe when he's got a Lipo, and, like, 3-for-1 on the Rey's Saber, and, like, another, like, 2 Blaster for Poe. And I'm looking at it, doing the math, I'm like, I can save Qui-Gon, but I have to start saving him now. Right, so I have to take those 2 shields. I then have to overwrite one of the upgrades with a Rey Saber. I then have to Ancient Heal to keep him alive. And just that one roll-off set me on the back foot for that entire turn, where I'm not dealing damage with the Ancient this turn because I had to resolve the shields on it, because I needed to keep him alive so that I could then Ancient Heal. If I had rolled, like, I had a Synchronicity in my hand, if I had rolled, you know, like, even a single melee on one of the Qui-Gon's dice, I would have been able to deal damage. If Dan hadn't rolled out into, you know, an immediately threatening roll, I could have maybe had some rerolls in there, but I couldn't. And then all we have over on Kanan is a single Vibro Knife to help us deal damage. So I got dealt like 3 damage to Poe that turn, which isn't enough, right? We go into next turn, and this is a real deal breaker, because basically he rolls out into, once again, and I may be missing a turn here. I mean, I'm not a perfect. I don't have perfect memory. But basically, he rolls out. And he threatens to kill Qui-Gon. So I activate Qui-Gon to force him to kill Qui-Gon, so that my Rey Saber will redeploy. That happens, right? And then I'm looking at my hand, and I look at his dice, and I look through his graveyard, and I notice he still has a Force Misdirection. Now, I have close quarters his hand twice this game, so completely wiped his hand. I hit a block in one of those, so that's great, but I haven't hit his Force Misdirect. Now, he still has cards in his deck, so maybe he doesn't have it, but he's sitting there with that +1 on Shoto. I'm like, this is going to suck. But I can't really do anything. I had to sound the alarm. I could have sounded the alarm to the Shoto, but there's a 50% chance it just rolls back into melee, and he's sitting there with a focus on Poe, so if he really wants to, he just focuses back into, like, the solid 1 melee, and has the Force Misdirect play option anyways. So I decided to just be like, okay, Kanan only has 1 melee side. I can still miss on my upgrades, so I'm just going to roll out. The Kanan at this point has an Ancient Saber, a Vibro Knife, and a Rey Saber. So I roll out, and I roll the both Kanan's dice hit the 2 melee. My Vibrant Knives hits like the +2 melee, and like my Ancient hits like a 1 melee. And he just goes, "Yep, Force Misdirect," and all my dice are gone. And then he rolls like he like does like one reroll, hits like 3-for-1 +2 between like Ray Saber and Chodo, and like special on like Poe so that he can also lipo me if he wants to that turn. It was like this perfect reroll. I go sound the alarm, and he rerolls back into the 3-for-1. It was bad. And so basically that was what I mean. That's what won the game. That Force Misdirect. And also, if Qui-Gon had just dealt any damage in the turns where Qui-Gon was still alive, where I was rolling out and was just rolling nothing, I would have had a much better chance of winning this game because he would have been in a better kill range. And I'm not sure if he knew this. I mean, he knew that I had Swiftness Concentrate in my hand at this point. But if I had missed melee and rolled a focus on Kanan, he was dead. So it would have been focus to the 3-for-1, play Swiftness, play Concentrate, go +2, +3, and deal 8 unblockable. His only misdirection option, I believe, at that point was the +1. I'm not sure. I guess I don't know what the light boat was on. But and he had a honor guard on the board, so I'm not saying that this is like somehow like super likely, but it's equally as likely to rolling 4 melee sides, especially the two melee sides on Kanan. If I had even rolled like 2 melee sides that turn and he gets 2 of them, I can deal damage, make sure I roll a first next turn, and just go Swiftness Concentrate. Game's over. But it didn't happen. Dan wins. Now I'm gonna give kudos to Dan. He's an excellent player. He played. He did what he needed to. He rolled well at the end. I mean, to add insult to injury on the last turn when he's rolling out, he rolled out 2/2/2 special on the lipo. So that was ugly. But yeah, he played well. He did what he needed to. I didn't get the rolls I needed. He got the removal that he needed to come back into the game. And the main thing is that his list was built to just ramp. His list said that I'm going to get double Shotos on Rey. It's going to take you forever to kill Rey. When you're not killing Rey, I'm also putting a Poe's Blaster and a Lipo onto Poe. Because I have Reaping, I have It Binds, and I have Destiny. Like, there's no way that he's not going to ramp every single game that he plays. So even though I was able to snipe his Rey with the upgrades, he already had a Ray Saber on her. So I got rid of a Shoto and an Ancient. He already had a Lipo on Poe, and he just plays a 2-drop next turn. So yeah, props to him. My brother was also in the top 4 match, as I said, and apparently he won the first game as well. So we both won our first games and then lost the next 2. But apparently he was looking like he would win the second game until he so Poe focused into like 2 +3 on Rey, and he already had a 2 or something like that. My brother goes sound the alarm, and he re-rolled the same exact damage sides, like 2 +3 2, and like killed Kanan. And like at that point, my brother lost the second game from that play. So if that, I don't know how many rerolls he had. I may be remembering this wrong, but I think he was out of cards in hand. It might have been a close quarters turn. I don't know. But anytime that you sound the alarm, a 2 +3 2, you don't expect that to come back at you immediately. Especially since then my brother doesn't have a chance to Ancient Heals to play redeploys because that reroll hit the damage, and now it's his opponent's turn. So that sucks. But yeah, both the RQPT players, I'll say, are from Tower Games testing group. So Dan and them hang out. The Java Unkar in the top 8 was also from Tower Games testing group. So basically, it was like 2 testing groups in the top 8. Four of us, 3 of the Tower Games people, and then there's one guy from like South Dakota or North Dakota. I can't remember exactly, but he had been talking to us throughout the day. So that's kind of cool that he comes from like a smaller group of like, I think he said like 6 or so teachers at his school that would play Destiny, and he comes over and he makes the top 8. So that was impressive. Yeah, I think overall it was a good showing for the deck. I was really sad that I lost that last game. I felt like the Swiftness Concentrate did work for me. I felt like it won me the game, and then just everything fell apart at the end. So I'm still thinking back, like, could I have made more aggressive decisions? Could I have done something differently? But ultimately, when your opponent rolls has a 5-die Poe, rolls what they need to, and gets a Force Misdirect for 4 dice, it's just hard to come back. I mean, what can you do? Force Misdirect is a very swingy card. So yeah, I know that my article will be talking about some of the like combo-y stuff that you can do, and I know that you may be aware of some of this stuff, but like being able to like, you know, swiftness and to trust the force to like reroll their non-melee sides and to then force misdirect them was great. Being able to like swiftness trust the force into close quarters assault, so that now you've messed with their dice and you hit your melee sides, which might not be killers, but now you have 3 melee sides and you're like close quarters assault, your hand is gone. Is always great. Force Illusion was in here solely for Rainbow 5s and Sabine Ezra matchups, because it's not really good into the mirror because of Vibro Knives and just low damage counts. I mean, if people aren't running Vibro Knives, then sure, you can block like 5 because of an Ancient. And it's okay-ish against Poe for the same reason. If they have an Ancient, then sometimes they'll deal 5. But I don't really like the card because the matchup's so slow. I think that actually in one of the games I dropped the Force Illusion and had the Force Illusion mill like Shoto Vibro or something like that. Like it was like bad. It was like, oh no. The other problem that I had, well, in the third game is that I didn't draw upgrades in turn 3, and I drew all those upgrades in the last turns. So I would have preferred that to be flipped. But in any case, so this Force Illusion's in there for those 2 matchups, and there were none of them at the tournament, like none. So that was kind of annoying. I probably would have replaced the Force Illusion if I'd known that literally none would show up. But yeah, I was very happy with the list. If you're questioning the one lightsaber pull, that's fine. The thing that I found is that I'm not as confident about just going Shoto on Qui-gon in all of my matchups. If I'm playing R2-P2 actually does Shoto better than you. They do math better than you. They get more value out of their characters than you do. Because Rey's trigger actually adds value, whereas Qui-gon just trades 1 for 1 health for 1 damage. And they have lots of cards in their deck that are just more mathy than you. They make better use of Lipo. They make better use of the Shotos on Rey. They have like Spirit of Rebellion, which is oddly good. But in any case, what I found is that I wasn't playing like these Shoto versions of Qui-Gon Kanan as much, especially if I got Starting Shields and had a Shoto, I'd be like, no, I can win this with Starting Shields. It's a 4 HP swing. But if not, or if I don't draw a Shoto turn 1, I'd rather go for the Vibro Knife Ancient as early as possible on Kanan and just snipe the Rey with a Swiftness Concentrate. So if you're not going as heavily for the Shoto thing, then a lightsaber pull is just extremely slow. Vibro Knife, the other big thing about Vibro Knife, beyond just being able to deal unblockable, is that it's ambush, so you're able to play the card and roll out, which is so huge for all the removal options. So tempo-wise, lightsaber pull just feels terrible on like turn 3. You draw it, you're like, do I really want to pull my Shoto? Because now it's going to be, like, I'm not going to be in the pool until my 3rd action. Along those lines, you might question why I have 2 Rey Sabers. The main reason is that if you're going for Shotos, or if in this matchup, if they start damaging who you have upgrades on, you need to be able to play a redeploy to conserve resources. And it would suck if you drew your Rey Saber in turn 1. Because like you know, like, do I discard my only redeploy in my deck? Or if it gets milled by Force Illusion or something like that, right? So the point of having 2 Rey Saber is that if I draw turn 1, I can discard it and know that I have another redeploy. I can pull that redeploy when I need it. So I have 2 more options in my deck. If it gets milled by my opponent, I still have a redeploy option. So that's the important thing. Some other things worth noting, if we look at the cost curve in here, we have 13 0 cost cards, 9 1 cost cards, 6 2 cost cards, and 2 3 cost cards. So these are all just upgrades. So in Qui-Gon Kanan, you're playing like 2 drops on turn 1s, 2 and 3. Sometimes you'll use a raise in there. So that's, but then like your characters are getting close to dying, so you very rarely buy more than 3 2 drops. Sometimes you'll get a fully loaded up Qui-Gon and you're winning the game, and then you'll drop like a Vibro Knife on Kanan and you'll get that. But you're not spending. You're usually by turn 3 you're like done buying upgrades. So then if you look at like 1 cost cards, beyond the combo of Swiftness Concentrate, we only have 5 1 cost cards. So that's why we're able to afford Swiftness Concentrate in this build, is because of the sheer amount of 0 cost cards that we are running, and the fact that we stopped buying upgrades about halfway through the game. So it's a really poor combo into decks like Rainbow 5s, because you need to do so much damage early. The early game matters way more, but in these slow matchups with Qui-Gon Kanan or R2-P2, turn 4 and on, you just, that's what your resources are there for. It's for the combo plays. Even stuff like Swiftness Synchronicity, Swiftness Trust the Force, Swiftness to like Overconfidence, and then roll out. Swiftness is just like a great card for when you're playing a competitive player and you don't want them to, you want them to be on the edge, and you can catch them off guard with plays. So yeah, I love this deck list. The tournament was a heartbreaker. Like losing after getting the kill onto Rey was just sad. Like, it was just atrocious how bad it went for me after that. I did what I needed to. I got the Swiftness Concentrate for unblockable damage onto the Ray, eliminated the Ray, and then I couldn't get damage through on the next turns, and then the turn that looked like I was going to be able to do damage because I had Swiftness Concentrate, I rolled all melee into Force Misdirect. But yeah, look for the article to have a little bit more stats, a little bit more specific, and organized mentions. But this is just kind of like my general feel for how the tournament went, some of my thoughts. Obviously, this meta is disappearing, but I will say that I don't think Close Quarters Assault is going to disappear anytime soon, and I think that Swiftness is a potential include for any deck, just because of how hard it is for your opponents to play around. Anytime that you can make your opponent have to think, I might have to Ancient Heal now, despite having 10 effective health left, because they could have Swiftness Concentrate. You force your opponent into suboptimal choices, or just losing the game choices if they don't make those choices. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Swiftness, oddly enough. Yeah, and so let me know what you guys think of this video. Was it a little bit too rambly? Let you guys know what you think of the list. I loved the list. I was really happy with where it ended up. Yeah, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.